Brittney Griner is playing a game, and this is what Brittney Griner calls. I was not going to comment on any of this stuff until this took place. Watch what she says. The entire internet has reacted to this. Here's Brittney Griner. They're playing against the Indiana Fever, and look what she's saying. Go ahead, Rob.
For the ticky-tack fouls that we were
Patrick Bet-David just went off on Brittney Griner, and the internet is going wild. The Valuetainment founder didn't hold back at all after seeing that viral video of Griner's comments about Caitlin Clark.
the ticky-tack fouls that we were talking about.
What he said next has everyone talking, and Brittney Griner might be wishing she never stepped foot on that court. Oh, you think Patrick Bet-David went too far with his brutal takedown, or did Griner deserve every bit of the heat he brought?
Well, that pretty much sounds like trash effing white girl.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest.
So the whole market reacts to this.
Folks, Patrick Bet-David just dropped one of the most savage takedowns in sports media history, and Brittney Griner is probably still picking her jaw up off the floor. The successful entrepreneur and media mogul absolutely torched Griner after that viral video surfaced, and he didn't hold back for a second. This wasn't your standard sports commentary, it was a full-blown demolition job that, according to Bet-David, laid bare everything wrong with the current culture surrounding the WNBA. Oh, what exactly set PBD off? It all started with what should have been a routine basketball moment between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. Reese shoved one of Clark's teammates, Clark responded with a foul, and then Reese dramatically flopped to the ground, what Bet-David described as one of those LeBron flops, hitting the floor like she'd been sniped. But from there, things got wildly out of hand. According to Bet-David, instead of treating it like just another basketball play, certain media figures immediately made it about race. DeMarcus Cousins claimed Clark was being protected because she's white, and Angel Reese started fueling the fire with her own controversial comments. But the moment that really lit a fuse under Bet-David was when Jemele Hill chimed in with what he called one of the most absurd takes in sports history, suggesting that Angel Reese could become the Michael Jordan of the WNBA. Let that sink in. A player shooting just 22.7% from the field, arguably one of the worst shooting stats in WNBA history, being compared to the greatest to ever play the game. Bet-David was stunned. And honestly, so was just about anyone paying attention.
Expressions of a person,
Lord,
and know
audio
their
a little bit
intent,
because
know
there's a
their
little static.
character, know their perspective. But he does understand hate, because I think he also understands the hate of self. When you look at the play, which is all we can speak to as professionals, all we can speak to as
The stupidity didn't stop there. Ryan Clark, ESPN commentator, decided to jump into the firestorm by attacking RG3, Robert Griffin III, for simply showing support for Caitlin Clark. And here's where things went completely off the rails. Ryan Clark actually suggested that RG3's opinion didn't matter because he's married to a white woman. You heard that right, a major sports media figure implied that a black man's perspective on race was invalid based on who he chose to marry. Patrick Bet-David was floored. He played the clip on his show, visibly stunned that anyone, let alone someone on national television, would say something so toxic, backward, and divisive. To Bet-David, this moment wasn't just offensive. It was a glaring example of how broken the conversation around women's basketball, race, and media has become. And still, all of that chaos was just the opening act. Then came the moment that truly ignited the firestorm. The viral video of Brittney Griner after she fouled out against the Indiana Fever. As she walked off the court, the audio appeared to catch her saying what sounded like, "trash fing white girl." And that's when Patrick Bet-David completely lost it. He didn't hold back. He called the comment exactly what it was, a racially charged slur from someone who, of all people, should know better. But PBD wasn't finished. What pushed him over the edge wasn't just the comment, it was the staggering hypocrisy. Here's a player who was once traded for Victor about the so-called Merchant of Death, a Russian arms dealer responsible for fueling violent conflicts across the globe. The U.S. government pulled off that controversial exchange to bring Griner home from Russian detention. That's the level of effort and sacrifice made for her freedom. And in return, she goes on national television and makes a racist remark about the very player Caitlin Clark, who is arguably saving the WNBA from complete irrelevance. Bet-David went nuclear. He laid into the entitlement, the lack of gratitude, and the warped priorities on full display. In his view, Griner's comments weren't just offensive, they were a slap in the face to the very country, league, and fans that went to extraordinary lengths to support her.
Brittney Griner, what she said about the NBA. This is so funny how all this stuff works out, right? She says, this is from Brittney, every time we play her, there's this commotion, like this loud rumbling from the stands. Turns out it's people, thousands of them, just sitting there, watching on purpose. It's very disruptive. It's called the freaking game that they pay you money to play.
Patrick Bet-David wasn't finished exposing the absurdity of Brittney Griner's behavior. He took it a step further by sharing alleged quotes from Griner that painted an even more baffling picture, comments where she reportedly complained about having actual fans in the arena. According to these statements, Griner was frustrated that thousands of people were now showing up to WNBA games and actually paying attention to what was happening on the court. That's right, in a league that spent years begging for viewership, visibility, and respect. One of its most high-profile players was allegedly annoyed that the spotlight had finally arrived. Bet-David couldn't believe it. To him, this wasn't just ungrateful, it was delusional. He argued that players like Griner should be welcoming the surge in attention, not whining about it. After years of irrelevance, the WNBA finally has the eyes of the sports world on it, largely thanks to stars like Caitlin Clark, and instead of embracing the moment, Griner appears to be pushing back against it.
In a recent interview claiming that Caitlin Clark is ruining what used to make the WNBA great. Wait for this.
Empty stands?
Tom, let me just...
go ahead, 'cause I'm so mad.
WNBA games used to be a chill, quiet place. You could bring your laptop and relax, maybe even get a little work done. But now, it's like there's a large gathering of people watching us from the stands. Some of them are yelling crazy shit about what they're seeing, putting unfair pressure on us to score like we're there for their entertainment. And that's pretty gross.
What?
Are you
I act like this.
Okay,
Rob, can you verify that this is what she said on the mom and pop WNBA model? That she's sick of the and then she says the whole thing is toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying exactly, but it was either about my performance or some.
The quotes were so ridiculous, they sounded like something straight out of a satire piece. Brittney Griner allegedly complained that WNBA games used to be a chill, quiet place where you could bring your laptop, relax, and maybe even get some work done. She supposedly went on to say that fans yelling and cheering were putting unfair pressure on us to score like we're there for their entertainment. As it turns out, those quotes were indeed satirical, but Patrick Bet-David's reaction still struck a nerve because it captured something very real, the entitled mindset that some WNBA players have been accused of displaying. The fact that these fake quotes were even believable to so many people says a lot about how disconnected parts of the league appear to be from the basic principles of professional sports. The idea that athletes would complain about fans being too engaged after years of low attendance and calls for more visibility is not just backwards, it's almost beyond belief. And that's exactly the kind of tone-deaf mentality that Bet-David has been relentlessly calling out.
Back off of Adam, because Adam's been saying this for a while, that this is why the WNBA is never, ever, ever going to work and never make money. And this is exactly what Caitlin Clark gets for bending the knee. Do you guys remember when she said, when we lost all respect for her, when she said, I want to say I've earned every single thing, but as a white person, there is privilege. And the more we can elevate black women, this is going to be a beautiful thing. That's when it was all over. And Angel Reese and Brittney Griner, they walk around like the league owes them something. Even Ryan Clark's attitude as if, bro, where's the victimhood? These are freaking millionaires. Like, what are you talking about? It's attitude, it's no humility, just entitlement.
But Patrick Bet-David used those satirical quotes to highlight a much bigger issue, a deep-rooted culture problem within the WNBA. He argued that instead of showing gratitude for the unprecedented attention, viewership, and revenue Caitlin Clark has brought to the league, players like Brittney Griner and Angel Reese behave as if the league owes them something. According to Bet-David, what we're seeing isn't professionalism or leadership, it's entitlement and attitude. The exact opposite of what drives success in sports or business. PBD didn't just call out individual players, he went after the broader victimhood mentality that he says has taken over the WNBA. In one of his most scathing critiques, he reminded viewers that many of these athletes are millionaires enjoying massive media exposure and corporate sponsorships, all while playing in a league that's been hemorrhaging money for years and is only still afloat thanks to NBA subsidies. Yet despite all that support, some of them still claim they're being treated unfairly because of race, gender, or media bias. Bet-David shredded that narrative, pointing out the absurdity of millionaire athletes claiming victimhood while being heavily promoted, protected, and financially supported by the very institutions they criticize. For PBD, it all comes down to mindset. He argued that until the WNBA embraces humility, merit, and gratitude rather than outrage, entitlement, and division, it will continue to alienate fans, squander opportunities, and sabotage its own growth. Patrick Bet-David was particularly brutal in his assessment of how this toxic attitude is sabotaging the WNBA's future. He said the league started underwater, and instead of fixing their problems, They're just poking more holes in the boat. And that, according to him, is exactly what's happening. The WNBA has a once-in-a-generation talent in Caitlin Clark, someone who could genuinely elevate the sport to new heights, but instead of rallying around her, too many within the league are more focused on playing the victim than seizing the moment. PBD didn't stop there. He took aim at the broader media narrative that, in his words, shields players like Brittney Griner and Angel Reese while relentlessly criticizing Clark. He argued that Clark's biggest mistake wasn't how she played, but how she tried to appease her critics. By making statements about white privilege and trying to show solidarity, Clark ended up diluting her own message and alienating the very people who supported her rise. Instead of just focusing on her game and letting her performance speak for itself, Bet David believes Clark tried to bend the knee to a narrative that was never going to give her a fair shake. And in doing so, she not only weakened her own position, but missed the chance to challenge the very double standards that are holding the league back. Elevate her game close to the rim, one of the most basic areas for a forward. Patrick Bet David hammered this point home using cold, hard numbers. Angel Reese, shooting just 22.7% from the field, possibly the worst in WNBA history, is being propped up and defended by the media, while Caitlin Clark, who's actually producing, is constantly under fire. Reese shoots only 43.8% on attempts within 5 feet of the basket, which, as PBD pointed out, means she's struggling to convert even the easiest shots in a game. Yet despite these glaring deficiencies, the league and media continue to shield her from scrutiny, choosing instead to focus their criticism on the one player who's actually generating viewership, ticket sales, and mainstream buzz. This, Bet David argued, is where the WNBA is getting it completely backwards. In any successful organization, sports, business, or otherwise, you reward performance and accountability, not victimhood and excuses. But in the WNBA's current culture, players who underperform are being protected because of identity politics, while the athlete who's driving real results is being vilified. PBD, this isn't just bad optics, it's a losing business strategy. The league has a golden opportunity with Caitlin Clark, but instead of building around her momentum, they're letting politics, entitlement, and misplaced priorities sink the ship. Patrick Bet David highlighted the absurdity of labeling someone the Michael Jordan of anything when they struggle with basic fundamentals like consistently making layups. He pointed out that even Karl Anthony Towns, often criticized for inconsistency in the NBA, would likely be offended by comparisons to Angel Reese's current performance level. But Bet David's most compelling argument centered on the long-term consequences of this dynamic. He predicted that if Caitlin Clark were to get injured or take time off, the WNBA's ratings and attendance would plummet, exposing how heavily the league relies on her to drive interest and revenue. That prediction proved prescient when Clark was announced to be sidelined for 2 weeks, prompting Bet David to remark, "Good." Patrick Bet David argued that Caitlin Clark's absence would be a revealing moment for the WNBA, saying, "Let's see what happens to viewership, because it would expose just how dependent the league is on its one true star." While other players may claim they're underappreciated, Bet David insisted the market will reveal their actual value. He also made a striking comparison between Clark and Jackie Robinson, not because Clark is breaking racial barriers, but because she's the first white superstar in a predominantly black league facing hostility from within. The irony, he noted, is that while Jackie Robinson endured racism from outside baseball, Clark is encountering resistance from inside her own sport, all while injecting record-breaking attention and revenue into women's basketball. Both athletes challenged the status quo, and both, despite the pushback, were clearly good for their sports. Bet David's criticism of the media was especially sharp. He accused commentators like Ryan Clark and Jemele Hill of pushing divisive racial narratives instead of focusing on basketball. In his view, they're manufacturing outrage instead of celebrating talent and competition. He also called out the WNBA's flawed business model, pointing out that the league loses tens of millions annually and survives only through NBA subsidies. Yet, players like Chendi Carter complain about increased fan attention, essentially resenting the very interest that keeps the league afloat. Patrick Bet David's business background gives him a unique lens through which to view the struggles of professional sports leagues like the WNBA. He understands that successful organizations thrive by focusing on what truly drives value, not by catering to feelings or political narratives. According to him, the WNBA has prioritized emotion over performance, which is a key reason it continues to struggle financially despite having real talent on the court. Bet David also broadened his critique to include the NBA, highlighting cultural issues like players such as LeBron James promoting anti-cop, anti-American, and pro-China messaging. When sports leagues shift their focus from entertaining fans to pushing political agendas, they risk alienating their core audience. Families looking to enjoy a game together don't want to be lectured about social justice, and casual viewers seeking entertainment don't want to feel accused or unwelcome. When sports become political theater, the fun disappears. Bet David also criticized Caitlin Clark's response to the controversy, saying her comments about white privilege missed the point. In his view, she should have focused on performance and leadership, not on appeasing narratives that distract from what actually matters growing the game. The very audience they need to survive. Patrick Bet David argued that Caitlin Clark made a strategic mistake by trying to appease critics who were never going to support her in the first place. Rather than doubling down on what made her exceptional, her skill, leadership, and work ethic, she got pulled into a conversation about race and privilege that had nothing to do with her performance on the court. In doing so, she lost credibility on both sides. Her critics dismissed her acknowledgement of privilege, while her supporters felt let down that she seemed to apologize for her success. It was a lose-lose move that highlights how entering racial politics rarely benefits athletes, especially when their focus should be on the game. The broader takeaway from Bet David's analysis is that merit should matter more than identity in professional sports. The WNBA has a rare opportunity to grow the league by building around authentically talented players like Clark, but instead, it's undermining that potential by prioritizing divisive racial narratives over basketball excellence. His prediction about viewership during Clark's injury will be a crucial test. If ratings drop significantly in her absence, it will confirm that the league's other stars, despite their complaints of underappreciation, do not drive interest or revenue in the same way. And if the WNBA continues to ignore that reality, it will remain financially unstable while alienating fans who just want to enjoy great basketball. Patrick Bet David's takedown of Brittney Griner and the broader dysfunction within the WNBA was sharp, unapologetic, and many would argue long overdue. He called out the entitlement, hypocrisy, and self-sabotaging attitudes that continue to hold women's basketball back from achieving mainstream success. While his tone was blunt, his message was clear. The league won't grow by demanding respect, it has to earn it through performance, merit, and market appeal. PBD didn't just criticize for the sake of it, he delivered a reality check that the WNBA and players like Griner desperately needed. His analysis challenged the league to stop blaming fans, stop leaning on political narratives, and start focusing on delivering a product that people want to watch. Love him or hate him, Bet David brought hard truths to the conversation, and the sports world is better for it. What do you think of Patrick Bet David's commentary? Was it too harsh, or exactly what needed to be said? Drop your thoughts below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more raw, unfiltered sports takes.